Welcome back, everybody. This is Steve, and today we're going to try and clean up this mess. When we were in this video last time, we were doing Windows driver setup to change the video resolution and work with the new video card so we could get the video capture up. And now you can see that there's all this configuration nonsense. It's kind of ugly. So what I figured we would do is a PC tune-up. So stick around. All right, this is T.O. from the future here, and I did this in the first take of this video too, where I forgot to show you what the memory footprint was before I made all the memory changes. Let's do that real quick, and then we'll get right back into it. It'll make sense later on when, yeah, just trust me on this. All right, so mem/c/p will tell us how everything is loaded into memory, and if we look right towards the bottom of the screen, third line up from the bottom, there is conventional memory, 640K, 655,360 bytes of memory, 64,272 used, 591,088 free. And if you look at the classification up above, the table up above, MS-DOS, HiMem, EMM386, Command-Com, Mouse, AD-DOS, and Share are all loaded in conventional memory, and then the Compact Configuration Manager, the IDE driver for the CD-ROM drive, the Microsoft CD-ROM extensions for DOS, and Smart Drive Disk Cache are loaded into upper memory. So not a lot of stuff loaded in upper memory, leaves us with 591K free. Not a bad amount of conventional memory free, but let's try it out and see if we can get any better. All right. PC tune-up time. Love it. Let's get some of this mess figured out. One of the things that you want to do when you are going to be making changes like this is either A, back up the files that you are working on, or B, make up an entire backup of the system. I'm going to back up the files that I'm working on. I'm going to copy config.sys to config.back. I'm going to copy autoexec.bat to autoexec.back. Then we're going to make some configuration changes to Windows again also to get rid of those weird drivers, the PlusText scanner driver and the Lodi box, whatever that happens to be. So we'll go into the Windows folder and we'll copy win, we'll spell copy properly, win.ini to win.bak, and we'll copy system.ini to system.bak. And those four files, I don't really care about the backup of the backup before I made the backup of the thing that I'm going to need the backup for. We can overwrite that. Those are the four files that configure your Windows system. Config sys, configure your Windows and your DOS system. Config sys is the one that loads all of the DOS device drivers to be able to interact with hardware and those kinds of things. Autoexec.bat is the one that sets up your environment, your prompt, your path, a couple of other nice little things that you want to have, changes into the right directory. It might run a menu program. Ooh, we'll get to menu programs later. And then there's been 20 some years of evolution in DOS, and now there's device drivers and configuration options everywhere. So you'll see that there's some drivers back and forth in both of those files. Don't worry about it. We're going to clean it all up. And then WinIni is the Windows configuration information, what to load on startup, what your color schemes are, blah, blah, blah. System.ini is the same thing. It's supposed to be drivers, and then the waters got muddied. Back when Windows 3 was popular, Windows 3.x was popular, everybody would put their configuration information inside of the win.ini or the system.ini file as they saw fit. So Microsoft fixed that by making the registry. And everybody did it all over again. They just did it in the registry. They were a little bit better, but not a lot better. So let's go back into the root directory, and we will start off with config.sys. And we'll use the DOS editor for this because it's not horrible. All right. Ooh, so in config.sys, we'll see a whole bunch of different drivers. Let's go over what these are. HiMem.sys creates the ability for DOS to see XMS memory, extended memory system. Extended memory came out after EMS. EMM386 can use the extended memory to emulate EMS, expanded memory. Expanded memory was created by Lotus, Intel, and Microsoft. LIM was the LIM EMS format. And what it'll do is it will kind of share memory between HiMem.sys and between HiMem. It'll share memory between extended memory and expanded memory. and the expanded memory is going to shrink down as the extended memory gets consumed, or it's going to expand as extended memory opens up. So they play along nicely. I believe EMM386 is what creates the UMBs, and HiMem is what creates the high memory access area. And HiMem will scan for and find holes in memory that it can then use, like if there's leftover memory outside of your video card, video RAM, or something like that. Buffers, I believe, is what you would use to speed up floppy disk access. Maybe it does some other things, but there are better ways to speed up hard disk access, and we'll see that when we get into AutoExec-BAT. Files is the amount of files you can have open concurrently. I've never really run this above 30, so there we are with files equals 30. So those are my recommended settings. Those are the ones that have kept me in good standing all along. DOS equals UMB, and then if you look down here a little bit further, there's DOS equals high. You can actually put those on the same command line, same device driver line. So you type in DOS high, comma UMB, and then we can get rid of this one. Last drive equals E. This machine has an A drive, 3.5 inch, 1.44 megabyte drive. It has no B drive, but DOS will emulate having a second floppy drive, and it will be nice enough to prompt you to swap disks as necessary. That's a throwback way back to the beginning of the DOS days. So that takes care of your B drive, which is why the hard disk is the C drive, because it's typically the next available drive letter when hard disks were brought into the PC world. D, this machine has a CD-ROM drive that's D, and then E is just available. So if you really wanted to be pedantic, you could make that last drive equals D and be just fine. If you wanted to add some more, you could make another drive letter through share or join, well, through substitute, not through share. And substitute would allow you to make a folder on your C drive into another drive letter. And, you know, if that makes your life better and increases your happiness while you're working at the command line, go for it. FCBS file control blocks. I'm not 100% sure what those are for. I didn't use them enough to remember what they're for, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of those. Shell equals c:/dos/command.com. That means we can pull command.com out of the root directory because we're telling it where it is. And /p means make it permanent, which this wasn't a thing before. I don't know which version of DOS this got introduced with. And /e is the size of the environment. Let's take a look at the size of the environment. The environment stores all of your command line variables that you would use in batch file programming or in day-to-day command line use. And right now we've got comspec, which even though we specified it into c:/dos, we didn't set it, so it doesn't even know. We've got a path, we've got something for the mouse driver, the prompt, and the temp folder. So I'm not seeing 1500 characters worth of stuff there. So I'm going to go back into config sys, and I'm going to cut that hard. And we will know fairly quickly if our cut was too much, and we can always add more and reboot. $256. Stacks is that same kind of thing. There are 9 stacks of 256 bytes each. I'm familiar with using stacks in the past, but not enough to worry about leaving it in there. And then you'll see a couple of device high commands, and you'll see this /L:1, and then some memory sizes. This is for MemMaker. We'll do a video on MemMaker in the future and see if it can optimize any better than I can by hand being lazy. But for now, I'm going to take this stuff out to give us a clean slate. And then this last one is power.exe, and it's commented out. Let's see if that even exists. It does not exist. And since it doesn't exist, we'll get rid of it. All right, let's take a look at these device drivers. This first one, cpqcm.sys. This is the Compact Configuration Manager. This machine is a Compact Presario CDS 524, and it is plug and play compatible. So this is the device driver that sets up plug and play compatibility. Volume control, this is probably hotkey sequenced. Well, actually, before we do that, I don't remember seeing that in that folder. I just remember seeing the CD-ROM drive and the Microsoft CD-ROM extensions. Let's check that out again. Yep, there it is on screen. It doesn't exist. So let's get rid of it. Okay, now that we've got all that done, the next thing that I like to do is just make this nice and neat and organized. So we'll edit, cut, edit, paste, and then we have the device drivers, and then I like to put this one at the bottom, just because. Okay, so we have, you can't load HiMem into high memory because high memory doesn't exist yet. You can't load EMM386 without having HiMem loaded. I don't know that you can load this high, but we'll try it. And then these we're going to try and see where they load high, and then the com spec is c:/DOS command com. So let's compare those. They are the same size, date, time, everything. So let's get rid of the one in the root directory. Now let's go into autoexec.bat and give it the same treatment. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to put @echo off at the beginning of the batch file. And let's exit out of here and let's make a real quick testing batch file. Ha, I removed it from the running operating system, so we've got to fix that real quick. All right, and we're back. One of the things that I forgot to do before the reboot was to edit autoexec.bat. And inside of autoexec.bat, you're supposed to put this com spec line, set com spec equals c:/DOS command com, which is where we moved the command com to, and then it wasn't able to find it in the root directory because the shell command that specified c:/DOS/command com wasn't smart enough to tell itself that it loaded from c:/DOS/command com. Old computers are fun. So anyway, right back to where we started from where we left off. Yeah, where we left off, because we started a while back. We're back in here cleaning this up, and I was going to show you guys what I was doing with the @echo off with a quick demo batch file. So let's get back out of here, and let's do that. So I'm going to create a temporary batch file called t.bat, to.bat, and inside of here I'm going to echo, this is some text, and then I'm going to pause. And so we'll run to.bat, and you can see it just, the very next line, this is what they mean by echo off. Echo is currently on, and so it will echo the command to the screen. Echo, this is some text, and then it will run the command. This is some text is the output of the echo command, and then it will echo the command pause to the screen, pause, and then it will say press any key, which is the pause command actually running. And so it's kind of ugly. It's not clean, not professional, as they would say. And so they introduced this command called echo off, where we could turn the echoing of commands to the screen off. So when you notice when I ran edit.to.bat, it didn't echo edit.to.bat to the screen. It just did the edit. It loaded the editor, it loaded the batch file, and there you go. So now that we've put that echo off in front, let's see what happens. Now it says echo off, this is some text, press any key to continue. Slightly more professional, but the edit program doesn't put echo off on the screen, it just runs. I realize it's not a batch file, but what I wanted to do when I started writing batch files was how can I get rid of that echo off line and make this look more polished. So let's go in and we do edit.to.bat. And we type an @ symbol in front of echo off. And we run to. We don't need to put the extension on. I've just been doing that because I spend most of my day in Linux, and Linux is even more pedantic than DOS is. We run TO, and it says, this is some text, press any key to continue. And now there's not the echo off. And you can get much more cleaner than this. This is just a real quick and dirty explanation. Let's delete to.bat, and let's go back into autoexec.bat, and once again, continue from where we left off. All right, echo off, set comspec equals c:\/DOS/command-com. I'm going to leave the environment level stuff up at the top here. And path is stored in the environment, but there's two different path statements in here. So first thing I want to do is combine the path. So first element in the path is c:/mouse. Let's see if it's down here. And here it is. Okay, so we don't need that. Is mouse win31 in the path? It is not in the path. And honestly, do we even need mouse in the path, or can we just specify the path to the mouse command when we run it? Let's see what's in that folder. I mean, I've lived my life this long without having mouse in my path. I do not need that in my path. Survival guide for the DOS editor. Right. Open. Forgot to specify it on the command line, so now I have to do it manually. All right, we can get rid of this whole folder, and then we'll do load hi c:/mouse/mouse. And then since we already have the @echo off put in there, we don't need to put an @ symbol in front of this. AD wrap. What is AD wrap for? Is it going to tell me? If After Dark was in password sleep when the machine was restarted, AD wrap locks the machine until the correct password is entered. AD wrap/L locks the machine regardless. AD wrap/Q don't show the message when the screen blanks. Okay, we're not going to do passwords on this machine, so we can get rid of AD wrap, but that doesn't look like it's stored in memory anyway. It is not stored in memory anyway, but we're on a housekeeping mission, so let's do some housekeeping. That's why they put the @ symbol there, so you wouldn't know that it was running. And you could bypass this really easily by booting off of a floppy disk, removing it from the autoexec bat, and rebooting the machine, and it would just move on with its life and there'd be no password. So, security. Let's get rid of that. AD-DOS is the DOS version of the After Dark screensaver. All it's going to do is blank the screen. There are millions of screensavers out there. This one's just fine. Alright, so they've remarked out the share command, and then they went back and they ran the share command again with the same parameters in a different order. So they probably thought that they didn't need it, and then found out that they did and put it back in by hand. I don't think we need it. Let's show you what share thinks it is. Installs file sharing and locking capabilities on your hard disk. So this would have been something where there were many multitasking programs before Windows, like Desk View and a couple of other options that were out there. If you had two different programs open at the same time and they were both trying to read the file, normally the first program would lock the file and the second program wouldn't be able to open it. And even worse, if you had them both open at the same time in two different programs and you saved it in one and then you tried to save it in the other, you'd wind up, best case scenario, with only the latest version of the file's changes saved. Worst case scenario, a collision of the two files because of disk optimization, disk write optimization techniques that people did, and a huge mess on your hand and you'd lose data. So now, share should allow you to open a file and lock it for writing, and then open it up in another program and not be able to write to it, so that collision doesn't happen. We're not going to be doing that. I'm going to get rid of it. So that gets rid of those two lines. The path is definitely an environment variable. No questions there. However, the path, because it's an environment variable, because it's also a DOS command to set and interact with the path, doesn't need to have the word set in front of it. We'll get rid of that because we can. But let's look in this path. Info Center, Viewer, Compact DOS. Compact DOS had the CD-ROM driver in it, and the CD-ROM extensions doesn't need to be in the path because you only need to run those once. C:\\, C:\\DOS, C:\\Windows. We already determined we don't want C:\\mouse in the path. And C Windows CPQ win. Is there anything in that folder? There's a bunch of stuff in there. CWC, CLC, CCC, Energy, Secure, Compact Event, CSW, iSearch, Case PNT, CD Runner. Bunch of, obviously I would hope these are a bunch of Windows programs. We can leave it in there. Maybe the person that used this machine used those tools all the time. Alright, set lmouse equals C:\mouse, prompt $P, $G. I like to go a little bit extra and put a space $sign at the end. And what that does is you can see that as I type, I'm right up against that greater than symbol at the end of the prompt. $P is the path, $G is actually the greater than symbol, space $. And now I've got that little space there, so when I do edit autoexec.bat, it's just a little friendlier. Yeah, it's a waste of a space. It's just the way I did things. I liked it that way. Set temp equals C Windows temp. That's where all of the temporary files for Windows would be stored. And also some DOS programs would respect this and they would put their temporary files in it instead of dumping them wherever they felt like dumping them. It's a nice little thing that Windows and DOS did towards the later years of Windows and DOS, and a lot of programs started respecting that. We do need to go in and take a look in that folder and clean it up. If you get a lot of files in a directory, when you go to do a directory listing or when you go to open a file in the directory, DOS will enumerate all of the files in the directory before it just gives you the one thing that you asked for. And so that takes up a lot of time. So if there are a lot of files in the temp folder and the temp folder gets used pretty heavily, you're actually adding a lot of time to how fast your load of a program will run or your scan of that folder will run or interaction with temp files will run. So it's a good idea to remove files from that folder every so often. On Linux, there's a program that will automatically empty that folder out when it reboots. So you don't have to do that on Linux. LH is short for load high. We'll just keep using LH. We'll change the other ones to match. This is that memmaker stuff I told you about before. Let's get rid of that. And there's the mouse driver for the second time. We don't need that twice. And then this one here, first off, CPQ DOS doesn't have the mode command in it, but what this is going to attempt to do, if it actually did exist on the hard drive, is it would take your display, which defaults to displaying color 80 column text, and make it display color 80 column text. So we can get rid of that also. All right, now we do the cleanup of this file, and we'll, nope, that's not the ones I wanted. I want to do it the other way. We will put the environment stuff up at the top, and then we'll put the drivers down below that. And then we will put more environment stuff up at the top. And then that leaves the drivers there where they belong. I'm not going to start Windows by default, so I'll just remove that line. And then for consistency's sake, I'll get rid of the load high spelled out, and we'll just use the LH part for it. All right, so we've got the environment variables set up. They look good. We have the COM spec set up so that we can actually run the machine. And then we have the mouse driver, the screensaver, the Microsoft CD-ROM extensions because DOS didn't understand CD drives natively. And then this /D is to tell it what device to connect to. And this has to match the line that's in config sys. And then Smart Drive is a disk caching program that will store frequently used bits of data into memory, which is faster than hard disk speeds. All right, there we go. Let's reboot and keep our fingers crossed. All right, there we go. We've got the Compact Configuration Manager loaded, the CD-ROM device driver loaded, the mouse driver loaded, the After Dark screensaver loaded, the CD-ROM extensions loaded, and we're back at the DOS prompt. So that's a lot cleaner. And then what I would do at this point is I would have it go into some type of menu program, or I would, at the very least, I would clear the screen and say something nice. But I wanted to leave that stuff on the screen so we could see where it was. Remember that part in the beginning of the video where I said future TO was telling you stuff and this would all make sense and you should trust me? Here's the part where it pays off. mem/c/p. Let's see if we've made any improvements in memory now that we know what it looked like before. Alright, so now we have MS-DOS, HiMem, EMM386, and Command are all loaded in conventional memory. Configuration Manager, the IDE CD-ROM driver, the mouse driver, DOS, After Dark for DOS, Microsoft CD-ROM extensions, and Smart Drive loaded into high memory. And instead of 599K of 640 free, we have 632 and change free of 640. So definite improvement, 33K of conventional memory back. That's actually quite a lot way back then. So we made some progress there. Next up is to look at the file system. I have, you know what, let's fix this real quick. I've loaded some of my tools on this machine, and I was going to show one of them, but it's not in the path, so... And I'm being super lazy here, and not wanting to type the entire path out again. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I'm already in the editor. So... I've now updated my path, and I can delete the to.bat file. And then the program I was telling you about is Vernonberg's list program, which is a fantastic way to quickly view the contents of files. So the autoexec bat file that we just worked on, you just move the mouse cursor over to it, and you press the enter key, and it displays the file, and you press escape, and it goes back. There's a whole lot of other real low-level type stuff. This isn't supposed to be a file manager or a DOS shell type replacement. This was really just, I mean, it's like exactly what you need in order to get the job done. And in this case, it is just a file viewer and it does the thing. I'm happy the machine booted up the way I wanted it to, so I can get rid of the backup files that I made. And then, double space, there's a story. We can look at some of these other files. These file001.check files, what happens is if you turn your machine off, this is why we shut down our machines, our modern computers, we shut them down, we don't just turn them off. When you turn off a machine and programs are open and data files are open, those files remain in an open state and DOS doesn't know what to do with them because they weren't shut down properly, they weren't closed properly. This may have some data in it that you might have lost because of a power outage or something like that. So you run check disk or scan disk and it will search for these type of unattended files or whatever you want to call them, and it will actually write them back to your root directory of your hard disk in case you happen to need them again. Realistically, most of the time, Lerjob's Busty Babes, nice. Babe pics, no preview, auto-loading babe slideshow. 50 erotic stories, live chat room. This must have been like an online bulletin board system or something. Most of the time, there's not much you can get back here. This is a video driver for a Cirrus Logic CLGD54 something or other. Let's see. More junk. More junk. More junk. Yeah, more likely than not, these files just, you know, the previous owner turned the machine off when it was still running Windows, and it's a bunch of Windows drivers and stuff that were open. So let's get rid of those. Del star.chk. As far as I know, List doesn't have a way to select multiple files and then delete them all at once because it's not a file manager, it's a file viewer that happens to have a, you heard me last time. Let's remove all the check files. Let's go back into L and see what's in there. Look at that. So much cleaner. Okay. So what else do we have here? Install log from installing fantasy.exe. Okay. We can get rid of that. Config sys, iosys, ms-dos sys. Alright, so those are files that you should not delete. We'll get into that in a future video. What's inside of this folder here? This is a setup program. IMT Play. Installs video for Windows, WinG, and the playback engine. Nice. Don't really need that. Z tilde MSST FQ.T. Yes. Alright, that folder's gone. WP Win 6, WordPerfect for Windows 6, WPC 20, WordPerfect Corporation, Windows, Trident Video Drivers, Toyland, my Tools folder, Temp folder where I put some stuff in there. We can get rid of that. Solitaire, Quicken Windows, QuickBooks, PC Audio, MS Works, Mouse. All right, we'll play with a little bit of that stuff later on. In the Windows folder is that temp directory that I was telling you about. Let's take a look in there. Oh, mama, there's a ton of stuff in here. A video file. Maybe it's one of those busty babes that we were talking about earlier. Yep, just a bunch of temp files. And this is the same thing with those check files. These were things that Windows needed to do while it was working on something. These are installer temp file folders. Nothing of any consequence in any of that. Let's get rid of all of that stuff. Let's see if this will delete all the files in the current directory, but I wonder if it's going to know about the subfolders and go through them and get rid of them also. You're going to ask me for every file. We're going to stop that. Control break to get out of that. /Y for yes. Nope, still doing it. You got to put the Y in front. Nice. And it's empty. All right, so Deltree did the thing I thought it was going to do. That was very smart. All right. So next up is fixing the Windows problems. Delete C:/Windows. If you remember from the last video when we ran this thing, it had a PlusTech scanner driver, and we don't have a PlusTech scanner, so it's just going to always give us an error because it can't find the device that goes with that. So let's edit system.ini, which is where device drivers should be. And let's search, find, plus, and there it is, device, PlusTech scan, FBP.386. We can get rid of that. And I'm pretty sure the lamp delay, the scan speed, the scanFX IO port, and the driver can all go away. All right, so, and again, we've got a backup of this, so if I'm wrong, so be it, we'll fix it. All right, that's the system ini, and then the other one was the Loady box. So let's edit win.ini. All right, After Dark is gone. Windows CPQ win, CPQ event, that's gone. All right. Cool switch equals 1. Find. All right. Load info center loady box .exe. That takes care of those guys, and let's see how Windows is now. All right, so no PlusTech error, no Loady box error. We fixed that. All right, a couple of other things on our tune-up regimen would be to run ScanDisk and make sure that's all right. All right. All right, ScanDisk is finished, and it wants to know if I should do a surface scan. It says it'll take about 35 minutes. I don't want to do a surface scan now. I will do that off camera. I would only recommend doing a surface scan on a internal hard disk if you heard something happen, if you've moved from one location to another, if you've dropped the machine, something along those lines, something that would cause damage to the surface of the hard disk. Under normal conditions, there's not going to be a whole lot of damage to the hard disk surface going on, so I wouldn't be doing that on a regular routine basis. If I was billable to a client by the hour, I'd run that and I'd sit there and wait 35 minutes. No, I don't want to view the log. All right, so ScanDisk didn't find anything wrong. Next up would be a defrag. And of course, if the client called me in for like an annual preventative maintenance thing, I'd clean the keyboards, I'd do stuff while it was scanning the surface, and I wouldn't then do a surface scan because I have no idea what the machine did. All right, so older spinning disks and DOS file management was, there's a couple of things that are going on, so we'll explain that real quick. 100% is not fragmented. No optimization necessary. All right, so the way that DOS wrote files to disk was it would pick the next available allocation unit and write the data to that available allocation unit. When you deleted files off the disk, it would pull them off the disk, mark the space as available, and leave an empty hole in the space. There were people who thought that the data on the internal part of the disk platter versus the external, so like you've got the spindle here, and then you've got data that's here, and then you've got data that's way out here. The data that's here should theoretically be spinning, the disk platter should be spinning faster, and the data should be able to be read faster. So you want to take and move all of your executable programs up to the front. So they tried to use software techniques to optimize for slow hardware. Now a lot of this stuff is built in, and hard disk platters don't spin anymore, and there aren't moving heads, and you don't have these kind of things to worry about. If I was coming in again to do like an annual maintenance type deal for a customer, I would go ahead and run this disk defragmenter, and it would probably look a lot worse than this. I actually already did run the disk defragmenter, and this is just how fragmented it became doing this video up to this point. And this would take about a half an hour. Let's begin. Finish condensing. All right, that was almost 4 minutes. And then I'm going to exit. And that pretty much is the end of that. In the next video, we're going to go over what all was on this machine and try and run some of the programs. And then from there, who knows? Maybe we'll do some benchmarks or something. Stick around for that. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because this is a new channel here, and ring the bell if you want to be notified of when new videos come up. Over here on this side, you will see a couple of videos at YouTube, and I also think that you'll like these. So thanks for being awesome.